I believe that citizens belonging to minority or underprivileged groups are entitled to preferential treatment in order to deliver equity. In the spirit, I also support DEI and affirmative action programs. Now, I have a big problem with this question personally. Um, the problem with this question is it kind of compounds a few things. Now, when it comes down to entitled to preferential treatment in order to deliver equity, I don't think that implies. I think that kind of phrases something that people who are minorities get certain things that other people don't. Ultimately, when I have the conversation with DEI, there are groups of people who make it a situation where, oh yeah, you're oppressed, you're oppressed, you're oppressed. I hate those people. I criticize them all the time and go and kind of downplay or hate on white people. Hate that, criticize that all the time. But a lot of DEI, I don't think is that by any means. Affirmative action, I, for the most part, when it comes to affirmative action, was never a big fan of affirmative action nowadays. I think it had value back in the day when it was very racist back in the day, but nowadays I don't think
Yep.
it has. So I think it's compounding a few different things, and I think that's problematic.
Well, again, we have to be tight with our questions. We can't ask more than one on this issue because there's many other issues we cover, and it's just getting to the point of it. Because for example, DEI, while there are some things like with protecting handicapped and other people, right? Those laws are already in place. The whole objective of DEI on the big pictures. I've studied it a lot. I mean, I'm a gay man, and I'm not that I care to talk about it, but I'm gay. I'm conservative-ish. I don't I'm pro-America. I don't say conservative. I don't like that word pro-America because I would say that, but the whole intent of these programs of affirmative action and especially DEI, the overarching intent is we're going to give people a leg up. We're going to give them an advantage in the race because they were discriminated against, and that's it. I mean, the Americans know that. And so, are you for getting that kind of preferential treatment? I know State Street Bank said the CEO, no white men are going to advance in our company to senior levels. No more white men. I mean, it's just like, okay, that is racist. That's wrong. That's sexist. That you can't do that. And so that's what people are pissed at. I know a friend of mine who couldn't get a job for almost a year and a half. A guy in his 50s, very smart. As soon as Trump was elected and they dropped the DEI stuff, he got all these offers because they said, finally, we can consider hiring this person. It was the most unhireable person in America is a man over 50 that's white. So it's sort of like not fair and it's not American and it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 ultimately. So that's why we try to get to it. Are you generally for this idea that everybody gets a special privilege if they're not effectively white and white men, or is it just be colorblind and it's based on merit and that's it? And that's what Trump is doing, and that's what most people want. Again, it's not about Trump. I just mentioned Trump right now because this is what's going on in the current landscape. But majority of people do not want DEI because it sounds nice on a high level. Yeah, equal rights. It's not equal rights. It's saying you need the equal results. Equity often means equal results, not equal rights, but equal. It's not fair. So we're going to make it easier for certain people, certain backgrounds to get into this college or this job and put merit in the back seat. And that's not American, and most people don't support it. And I'll say most people don't support it. That's how we rate it. So this is the DEI question ultimately. We could word it different and say, hey, I support DEI and affirmative action and keep it simple. But then again, people don't always understand that really what it means is giving special privileges to people based on inherent characteristics, which is a violation of our American principles and the Civil Rights Act.
So
That's it.
we obviously we won't have the opportunity to dive this in further. I pretty much disagree with everything you just said in regards to how you kind of talked about DEI. But ultimately, I get that's the perception that people have that the DEI is giving black people and people of color and
Well, it's not just
minorities. Well, I'm saying
it's
people of
not just
color, minorities, opportunity, or not even opportunities. They're just giving them results, as you said, that they don't deserve. And I don't think that is the case. I think a lot. I think the ultimately it's giving them the opportunity to succeed, like other people that had the opportunity historically. But ultimately, this is one that people have kind of misconstrued what DEI means, or at the very least demonized the term to make it seem like it's at this point a slur. If people say, "Yeah, I was a DEI hire, I got the opportunity to show I'm capable. I'm just as capable as this person," and now they gave me the opportunity because I don't have the connections. I don't know the people. I don't have that initial initial kind of stereotype that, oh, I look qualified because I look a certain way. So this is going to be like a visceral kind of ideological difference, and we probably won't come to agreement in the time we have right now. But
I will say one thing, materially, okay, I know for a fact that companies were pressured, highly pressured. Actually, there's evidence, lots of evidence that they had to hire certain people based on primarily this is happening all over the places, pushing, the diversity hires took precedence over skill hires, and that's a proven thing that happened in our government. And Harvard was sued because they weren't allowing Asian. There's a huge lawsuit, and that was a lawsuit that ended the affirmative action because Harvard's being racist against Asian people that had great scores on tests, but they didn't want them. So I'm sorry, there's lots of evidence that this was happening, not just against whites, but also Asian Americans and Indian Americans. It happens. A lot of people are bitten by this DEI thing. The best thing to do about being racism is not being a racist. And there's one way to be a racist: prioritizing race and these things as factors in hiring or admissions. That's racist. So most Americans agree. Let's not be racist and make laws that are racist or bigoted. That's
the
it. Racist, bigoted, or whatever, and giving people privileges. But anyway, that's the reason why I put it in there. We're very strong in that because majority of Americans agree that you shouldn't get, that shouldn't be a factor in admissions. But you're right.
I
If we're
agree
getting
that the majority of
is
Americans agree to that, but I also think that the majority of
that's
Americans thinks that it's a slur. They think it's a problematic thing. The problem is not the
yeah,
information you just told. The problem is how they're perceiving the information. When it comes down
yeah,
to
yeah.
it, when
A lot of
people are
misinformation about it.
being when people are getting the opportunity, if there's a group of people who are unfortunate, poor, who never have the opportunity to rise in that success level, that group, that demographic that it does succeed honestly, can constantly regurgitate and constantly
Yep,
refill the quota of the amount of people that constantly gets that opportunity.
yep.
These people are just as good as these people, but nobody looks at these people. So now let's just give them the opportunity to prove that they're just as good because they are.
Well,
So now they're put in a situation where they are just as good, just as qualified, and now
wait,
they
well,
can have the opportunity to be seen. That's why I think people are kind of
well, the
looking at it
DEI does
incorrectly.
Yeah, well, you're saying colorblind, and that's what we agree with at Go USA because that's what most people want, and we believe that's also lawful. But what you said is colorblind. That's not the DEI is saying, oh, this person's gay or whatever, so they've got to be put ahead of the line, and that's what the problem that most Americans have. Don't put them ahead of the line just because their color or their
It's not
orientation.
they had a all right. So I mean, like I said, we're gonna
It's,
completely
you agree
disagree.
with equal, you don't agree with special privileges, and that's what DEI ends up with. That's what it's
Um,
ended up with. It.
I think some
So, okay,
people can use it incorrectly, but ultimately the
okay.
core of it of the core of it is not how you're characterizing it. And I do think how you're kind of noting it, you're qualifying the what DEI is being used for by saying that people are being put at the head of the line. No, they're just getting seen just like everybody else when they're not usually seen because there's a preconceived notion that they're not as capable.
Do you
So
think it's okay for State Street Bank to say no white men can be hired? Are you okay with that? Because that's what DEI is doing at State Street Bank. Just so you know, and that's one example of many others. They were saying like the NHL is too white, but is anybody saying the NBA is too black? Like, come on, like it's the North. People are white because they come from Canada, mostly in the North, where there's ice and there's more white people. It's not
but
racist. There's more
if you remember what my
no,
initial statement was, is that
that's
I
crazy.
don't like my initial statement was I don't like when people hate on white people. That was my initial statement. You
No,
heard me say that, right?
or
So
Asians or
your
anybody else.
question, yeah, but the reason why I brought that up is because it initially applies to how people were treating white people, and I do think they were being treated
Yeah,
very aggressively, especially in the 21st century. That's
yeah.
why I brought them up. So I made that very clear at the right in the beginning. People can be using it correctly, they can be using it improperly, but the core of what it is, it was in order to provide more opportunities for the unfortunate. If all the people that are very specific demographic, that have all the wealth, that have all the opportunities, that have all the connections, that have all the education, that have all the training, that have all of that, if those are the people that are just seen as the qualified ones and always get the opportunity, who's going to look at this person who comes from a poor background, who doesn't look like he's as capable? Especially if I know this person, I know that person's friends, I know the training they came from, I know the school they came from, I'm going to hire this person. This person just I mean, he doesn't have the training,
Like,
doesn't have the background, he doesn't have the money. I mean, and he
you can
doesn't
be
look like
sued.
they're as qualified. So I'm not going to give
You
them
can
the
be
night of day compared to this other person who has all the resources.
So you could still sue. You could still for discriminate. You can still sue for discrimination if you believe that you were unfairly looked over, whether you're white or black. In either situation, let's get rid of the laws and pressure to prioritize
They did,
traits
and
that you.
that's why we created affirmative
Yeah,
action and DEI. That's the
yeah,
purpose
yeah.
why
Well,
we did
yes.
this because it
Listen,
was
all you
so
need is a
unfair.
law that says no discrimination in any direction, and you could sue if there's discrimination. That's what we need, and that already exists. But maybe add gay rights into that. Maybe maybe that's not there
Oh,
as
of
well enough.
course.
But
Gay rights for sure. I do.
gay
I'm gonna be
rights
very
and
clear. I
condensed
think the
hours.
left has gone too far in a lot of things, but now I think we're
Yep.
overcorrecting and it's becoming problematic.
Oh, okay, we're
Um,
gonna go to the next question because we were on this for a good dynamic discussion, and I'll put that into my mind for 2026 as we create the new questions for the next round.
Fair enough. Fair enough. See, I mean, hey, even if you disagree, you could have a civil conversation like we just did right here.
Yep.